It was such a gem to get that letter and to hear it, and just thanks for sharing that. It was really powerful. This past week, the principal of Byron Nelson attends our church, and he invited me to lunch. He said, I want you to meet our new head coach. So I went to the school and had lunch with the principal and the head coach. And the head coach is someone who is doing a coach's study, some of his coaches, and does a character study with his kids every Friday with his players. And it was just incredible to sit there and talk to them and listen to their passion and hear how the two of them together care so much about these kids and the impact Coach's Outreach is having on them. Then we walked the halls. That was an experience. If you haven't walked a high school hall and you're an adult and it's not where you're supposed to be, it's an intimidating place. Maybe one of the most intimidating places ever. And you go through there, and as an older person, you know, and you hadn't been in a high school in a while, and you walk those halls, you just start assessing the kids. You can do it really fast. Cool kids, quiet kids, kids with a lot of friends, personality, some with none. I had one kid I saw as we were walking around, and this principal is saying, meet this guy, meet this guy, meet this guy. And the kids are coming up to him, and you could tell he's got a great relationship with the teachers. He's got a great relationship with the kids. And it didn't take long at all to see these guys are making an impact in this school. And I saw this one kid sitting on because it was sort of strange. They have this cafeteria, but it's not like a cafeteria. You can eat in the halls. They have little tables in the halls. You could sit on the floor and eat. And I'm walking through, and as I'm doing it, my brain is like a computer just assessing all these kids in a flash. And I come around the corner, and I see a kid sitting by himself, and he's sort of a bigger kid, and he's awkward. And you can tell it. He's got acne, and he's sitting by himself eating. I rounded that corner, and that kind of kid, you know, doesn't get somebody building into his life, and he just feels out of place every single day. That kid makes my heart break. And so I'm sitting there, I'm walking those halls, and we stop, and tears are shed by them over how much these kids mean to them. It took me back to the halls of my own school life. And I was catapulted back to, you know, I didn't have a dad. But for some reason, I love sports, and no one in my family did. Literally no one. Generationally, there's no athletes. I mean, I had no chance of being great at all. They didn't even watch it. And so I was an aberration, literally, in every way, because as soon as I could walk, I was loving football. And I'd watch Monday Night Football all by myself. In fact, it was Monday Night Football during the intermissions when these players would come on and say, athletes don't do drugs. Now, I didn't know they weren't telling the truth at that time. I believed every word they were saying. And so, in second grade, I came home from school. My mom, and I talk about this, she remembers me coming home and saying, Mom, I got to quit smoking pot with you. I went ahead and told you that because Tommy brought it up. And from that day on, I told her, I said, athletes don't smoke pot. And so I stopped. The rest of the family kept doing it. But, all through those years, I loved football, and my dad wasn't around. And so any coach who would give me any attention, I'd do anything for him. It just meant the world to me. I didn't even understand all that was going on inside of me as I was thinking about that. I can remember in early elementary school running away one day, and all I took was my helmet and uniform. And at dinner, I had to come back. Turns out athletes got to eat. So I had to come back. In 1972, growing up in South Florida, watching the Dolphins' perfect season, I did that by myself. I still hold a lot of resentment to my whole family for not watching that with me because it's amazing. But it was just incredible. And then in middle school, I can remember being at a very, very, very tough middle school. We moved around everywhere. There were times we moved in the middle of the night. Literally the middle of the night, because that's the way we could get out of there without having to pay rent at the apartment we were in. I went to so many different schools in so many different areas that was always making new friends. in middle school, I had 7th through 9th grade. So we had a lot of older kids, and I was one of those young 7th graders. So a 9th grader just seemed like an adult to me. And I can remember walking, it was a very, very tough school. They used to let me go to lunch 5 minutes before everybody else because I got destroyed in the hallway. 5 minutes before the bell rung for everybody to go home, I was already halfway home because the teachers would let me go home before. I was a small kid with long hair. I didn't have a chance in this middle school. And, but I remember one time after lunch, being with a big crowd, walking through the lunch, and it was so crowded in the halls, and the wrestling coach by the name of Coach Smith sees me walking in the hall, and right in the middle of everybody, comes right up to me, gets down on one knee in the middle of the hallway, puts his hands on my shoulders and says, "I don't have a guy your size on my wrestling team, and I could use you." Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I was no wrestler. That was the last thing I was. But he asked, and I said, okay. And so what he got was a really bad wrestler who never once had the right equipment. I wore basketball shoes on a wrestling mat. Always wrestled B team, the matches nobody would want to see. But he would be on one knee at the circle, cheering me on. I always said if he was a believer, I would have wanted to be one. Because that interested me, changed my middle school years. And of course, I had coaches after that that made a difference in my life. But he was special. I've been a part of Coaches Outreach for about 14 years. I've been a part of the Bible studies and the marriage retreats. That's the essence of Coaches Outreach. It's very simple, profound, but simple. Train them in biblical truth and strengthen their marriages. Mike Mason said, marriage is a crisis in the best of circumstances. And if you're a coach and you got to go through seasons like that, it's even tougher. And so it was great to be a part of those when Tommy asked me almost 15 years ago. For the last 7 months, though, I've gotten to walk the halls of Coaches Outreach. I've gotten an inside look at how it works. If I took you down the halls of the Coaches Outreach thing, here's what you'd find. You'd find very, very gifted staff, very, very passionate. A visionary board that I've gotten to know and see, who I appreciate very, very much, who know the potential of this ministry. And then a founder, who I've always known is the embodiment, heart and soul of this ministry. I want you to know something, because we're in a transition time, that in this transition, this ministry is in good hands. It's a new era, and the halls are filled with hope and expectation of a new executive director, which, by the way, lots of work is being done. A couple of guys have risen to the surface. We're pretty close to finding somebody. And everyone's totally excited about it. Even Tommy is excited about it. And yeah, he's sort of like the Moses, waiting to pass it on to the Joshua. Except Moses had beautiful flowing hair. Beautiful flowing hair. Glowed in the glory of God. But I'll tell you this. He's not going anywhere. He's involved in this ministry. And one of the things I've gotten to see in interviews and different things like that is you get him to start talking about Coaches Outreach, he'll cry. He's just a big, hairless baby. And he'll start crying he'll just start crying because his soul and his heart and his passion for this ministry just embodies it. And so that's still a part of this. In this transition, the ministry, think about this, has hit all-time highs. Over 5,000 coaches being impacted, 540 school studies going on in 15 states, all run by 3 staff, and then a sweetheart of a gal doing admin for us right now just in the office. That's essentially what makes this thing happen. It's a tight, very streamlined ship. And one of my favorite things is each week we'll sit around and just share stories, and I'll just hear stories. I get to do that now. And if you were walking down the halls, you'd come into a staff meeting and you hear one of them tell a story about a coach or something that just happened. I remember when we got the letter that you wrote. It was just awesome. I thought, her dad is never going to get over this. Her dad's never going to get over this. It was just another great story. Mark told me the story a few weeks ago about a study that was happening in Frisco. There was a coach, young coach there, got involved in a coach's Bible study, and he just really started to grow. He grew so much that he decided to use, because we also have, you may not know this, athlete studies that a coach can take and take one of his athletes through. And so this coach, on fire, takes one of his athletes through it. Turns out this is one of these guys who's a really good football player, the nickname of T. One day in a study hall, something happened because this kid, T, was a good ball player. Also, the school began to see his life radically change, literally before their eyes. So in a study hall, professor says, all right, everybody, I just want you to get out a piece of paper, pen. I want you to write down the name of somebody you admire and you want to be like. And everybody's writing down somebody famous. And he writes down T. At the end of that study hall, the teacher collects these, sees who it is, they discuss it. And he goes, why did you put T? And this is the quote that we have. The student replied, he doesn't know me, this athlete, but I've been watching him. I see the way he lives his life. I see the quiet joy. I see the way he treats other students and encourages them. I'll never play football, but that's the kind of person that I want to be like. Imagine the impact that that's having on a school. You impact a coach, you impact a kid, you impact a school. You impact a school, think about that. Where it goes from there, community, society. So we have, there's 5,000 coaches being affected, somewhere in that area. 5,000 coaches being affected. I did some research, it's really hard to find. 20,000 high school coaches in Texas. It's 20,000. And like the coach just said, over a coach's career, he's going to influence somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20,000 kids. And these are kids that, he doesn't have to go hand select. God drops them in his lap on his team. Not all of them are wanted. I understand. But God gives them to you. They just come right through your school and you get to impact them. It's just a profound reality. So, I jotted down right here. When you consider the impact of this ministry, its future potential, okay, there's 15,000 more high school coaches at least that could be affected just in Texas. But we have leads and opportunities in other states. When you consider that, the future potential, the minimal staff it takes, a visionary board, in terms of investment, it's one of the best kingdom deals on the table. I'm just going to tell you, it's one of the best kingdom deals on the table. And the truth is, you've probably seen this in an email, the ministry's growing faster than the funds are coming in. That's just the truth. And we want you to know, we need your help. This is a great ministry to invest in. And as kingdom people, we've always got to be on the lookout for kingdom deals. And one of my favorite texts about this is Luke chapter 16. Very familiar text, tough text, because it's about a crooked steward. And this crooked steward's driven scholars crazy. But he's caught mismanaging funds. And he's working his last day. He's been told by his boss, you're done. Well, this guy takes very desperate measures, literally. And he cuts the bills of his boss's debtors. All of a sudden, just money is not what matters. And in a flash, he comes to the realization that Jesus wants everyone to come to. As he thinks about life and he thinks about his future, all of a sudden, money doesn't matter. People do. Relationships do. That's what matters more than anything else. So his boss, after realizing what he's done, comes to him, and in chapter 16 and verse 8, commends this dishonest steward because he acted shrewdly. The people of this world, Jesus said, are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than, listen to this, than the people of light. I want you to hear that because in my opinion, if you're a pastor for over 20 years, you've taught every single money passage there is. You've taught them all, trying to encourage people to be generous. There is no stronger indictment in all of Scripture as it relates to money, to believers, than what Jesus is about to say right here. When he says, the people of this world are more shrewd than the sons of light when it comes to looking for good kingdom deals. Overwhelming. And he says in chapter 16 and verse 9, I tell you, make friends for yourselves in the way that you use your worldly wealth. So when it runs out, you will be welcomed into eternal homes. Jesus is basically saying, why is it that a crooked steward, a guy about to be fired, can learn one of life's greatest lessons faster than my children who I've given a vision of eternity to? That's basically what he's saying. I think I hear Jesus saying, I wish my followers would themselves take drastic measures and invest in people instead of stockpiling. I hope they have eyes for kingdom deals. I hope they picture eternity. Because one of these days, we'll walk the halls of heaven. And you'll turn here and you'll turn there and you'll be introduced to people and you're going to meet people that this ministry has radically impacted. We had a coach not long ago from Grapevine, Wes Hunter, who baptized a kid in our church that goes to his school. It's not even on the team, but he gave his life to Christ. And then in our church was baptized. That'll be one of the kids you'll turn the hall. You'll turn down a hall in heaven and you'll see that kid. Because of a coach that cared about every kid, not just his kids. And I just want to say this to you. Here's the facts. We need to grow the giving base of this ministry. It's got to widen. And I'm talking about monthly gifts of all sizes. You're here tonight and you say, I'm tapped out. I give a number of places. $5, $10, $20. We need more of those kind of things coming in on a regular basis to widen and stabilize this ministry. And it's worth it. Because there's so many states, so many opportunities, and we're just waiting for God to provide the funds. I think I said it already. This ministry is growing faster than the funds are coming in. This is a phenomenal thing. We interviewed, it wasn't really an interview. It was just Craig James, who's going to DTS now, who's got a whole new perspective and vision on his life. This fella is just gung-ho for God. He wanted to know about Coaches Outreach when he heard about it. So he came in, sat down with our board and staff. And I wish you could have seen the look on his face when he realized that for how long he's been in athletics, he's now given his life to Christ and realizes that significance is better than success. And he goes, I wish I'd have known this thing was here. I wish I'd have known what you guys were doing. And he has verbally committed to helping us get the word out about Coaches Outreach. What I'm saying to you is, all you have to do is sit down with anyone who's had anything to do with sports and ask them. And this is what I did. We were sitting in the meeting. I said, you got coaches that have impacted your life, Craig? And you should have seen his face light up as he just started talking about the coaches that made a difference in his life. You can do that across the board. This fast, you can catch the vision for Coaches Outreach. And so he's going to help us do that. What I wanted to do as I close this right here is I want you to meet the staff. I want you to see them. So I'm going to ask the staff if they would to just make their way up here real quick because I want you to see them. And as they do, I'll say something about them. Let's see. Here comes Robert. Robert's over here to my left. Robert's the sort of the administrative anchor. If I need to know what's going on, I say, Robert, what happened? What is it? What is it? And he knows. I wrote down solid, steady, but passionate. Takes care of business. That's Robert. Okay? Then there's Mike behind me, Mike Breeden. Oh, you can't be in the office long, you fall in love with Mike. Mike's a highly relational guy, great facilitator, emotional, wears sweaters to banquets. That's the kind of thing that he'll do. He'll do that right here. He'll wear a sweater to a banquet. And a bow tie. Lord help us. All right? This is our relational guy. All right? Love him. You talk about passion for this ministry. I hear him on the phone to the lay leaders. I hear him on the phone to the guys leading the Bible studies. It's amazing how he motivates those guys. And it's just incredible. There's our office right next to him. Then there's Mark. Where is he? Mark had to step out. Okay. Well, Mark is the voice you heard, and he also introduced this entire thing at the beginning and showed you the deal. He was the first person you saw at the podium. Mark is our education director. He's a writer. Very, very smart, very, very gifted. And because I often need things written for our church, I'll say, Mark, I need to write something about this. How in the world do you write that? What do you say? And he's just very gifted. He can do it right. Very insightful, gifted, and expressive. Love having him on the staff. And then there's Ann that you see here. Ann right now is sort of just filling in and trying to help us in the office, in the secretary. You will not meet a sweeter person on the planet if you don't know Ann. Diligent, detailed, very sharp. In our staff meetings, always adds something incredible. She's the one who started the Reach, the one who lives with the vision of coaches' wives. You know, you reach a coach's, sometimes it takes a coach's wife to reach a coach. And she's got that vision, and they're already doing amazing things with vision to go farther, just like Coaches Outreach. So she's doing that, and just want you all to know just how incredible you are in the work that you do. Would you mind giving them a hand? All that work, all those people, all that ministry gets done with this streamlined staff. I'm telling you, it's a kingdom deal. It's a kingdom deal. All right, you guys can have a seat. Robert, you're up.